Good evening and welcome to the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for Thursday, December 11th, 2014. The first item on our agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Bragnano, would you please lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The second item on our agenda is the approval of the minutes from the November 13th, 2014 P&Z meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Brad made the motion and Todd seconded it.
Motion was made by
Brad Emmons, and it was
seconded by Emmons and seconded by Bragnano.
Yep, precisely. I'm going to ask generally of the P&Z commissioners up here, on all these matters, if you have had, and I know we have at least one, if anyone has had any ex parte communications or feels there's any reason they can't render a fair and partial judgment on any of these matters, please speak up now.
Yes, on item 3A, that is the request to change administrative permit for paw prints grooming. I've got a conflict and I'll recuse myself. The conflict is I'm a client of Paw Prints and I also have an ongoing relationship with the general contractor, so I will recuse myself.
Very well. And that brings us to item 3A. And 3A is Paw Prints, a request to change an administrative permit use condition for the Paw Prints dog grooming training establishment to increase the number of permitted overnight animals from 40 to 85. I see this as quasi-judicial, so we need to swear in anyone who's going to speak on this matter.
That's correct.
Okay, let's go ahead. Anybody who's going to speak on this matter this evening, please stand up so that you can be sworn in.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
Thank you. Gentlemen?
Yes. Thank you, Chairman Zimmerman. John McCoy with the Planning Department. This is a request to change a condition of the administrative permit use approval. For expansions of administrative permit uses, essentially they just need to comply with the conditional use criteria, and they're approved at a staff level if they've already been approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission. In this instance, the applicant's looking to change a condition that was actually approved by a previous Planning and Zoning Commission, and that's the reason it needs to come back, is because that original condition was implemented by the Planning and Zoning Commission. And the request is to modify the approval condition to allow an increase in the number of animals staying overnight from 40 to 85. And that is the request. The subject site is located on the north side of 12th Street, just west of Point West, and just a little bit east of Life for Youth Ranch. The site is zoned A1 agricultural. To the north and east, it is zoned PD, planned development, traditional neighborhood development, and all the other adjacent zonings are A1 agricultural. The aerial shows the location of the site, which is right in the center of the aerial. Again, adjacent to the east is the Point West Golf Course. Adjacent to the north is the Point West Golf Course. Agricultural property to the west of the subject site and agricultural property developed to the south of the site. And you can see all the physical features surrounding the subject site. This is a conceptual plan, and north is to your right. So it is now this being the north arrow, so laying out the front of the property on 12th Street would be to your left, and this is just an area of development, so it's an excerpt of the overall property, approximately the north half of the property, showing the access roadway, proposed building, turnaround area, proposed parking that would be. If the condition is changed, the applicant would need to come up with a major site plan that would be reviewed and approved at a staff level if the conditions change, and that site plan would reflect generally the layout and what you see here on the conceptual plan approval. And this is to illustrate what the improvements that would be done to support the increase in the number of animals. With that, I'd like to get to the recommendation, and staff does recommend a modification of the condition with the conditions as stated in the staff report, and that includes the total number of overnight animals be increased from 40 to 85 with completion of the new facility. All animals be kept indoors overnight, and animals that are outside are supervised while they're outside. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCoy. We'll start by asking if any commissioners have any questions of staff before we open it up to any testimony that people may have. Any questions of staff? None? Anyone who would like to speak, please come up to the podium and state your name and address for the record, please.
Sure. Jeff Barquette with Schulke, Biddle, and Stoddard, 1717 Indian River Boulevard. Thank you, John. Just here with the owners, Sean Verdi and Kim Conte, and the contractor, Brian Hayes. Be happy to try to answer any questions you may have or try to make any clarifications that you may have. And other than that,
Any questions?
I have one question, Mr. Barquette. I mean,
Yes, sir.
Would there be any time where, like, all of the 80 dogs be outside at one time, or 40 dogs at one time?
you know, I'd ask him to come up in a second, but I don't believe so. The owners have owned the place or had it open for 8 years, and they're just doing extremely well. And they have to turn away people almost daily for overnight stays and everything, and they just need more room. So I don't believe there would be a time when all 80 would be out there, but thank you, Kim.
Good evening. Just state your name and
I'm
address
Kim
for the record.
Conti. My husband and I own Paw Prints. The way we do it now, they go out in stages because we want to control the noise. In daycare, they're out during the day in daycare, but that doesn't have to do with overnight boarding.
So, how many people do you have watching the dogs
I
at
have
one time?
22 employees right now.
Okay.
Goodness gracious.
What's the level of supervision for the dogs when they're outside?
Between the hours of 7:30 and 5:30, probably 8 to 9 handlers out there. Then I have 4 concierges, I have bathers, I have groomers. So dogs are coming and going, fluffs and buffs, baths, training dogs. So I have 8, 12, anywhere from 16 people all the time with the dogs.
And in addition to that, there's security fence, as you know, required by the site plan all the way around
Sure.
the perimeter. And then there's different sections here and there that is for different types of activities also, dog activities.
And the proposed building is 6,000 square feet.
Yes, sir.
Will that handle the additional dogs, or will it handle all the dogs?
All the dogs.
All the dogs, so the dogs that you have now are,
No, not the daycare dogs, just the
no.
overnight boarding dogs.
Just the boarding,
okay,
correct.
so, and where are the dogs boarded now?
Right now, we've added 4 buildings. We have 2,000 square feet, we have 1,200 square feet, and then another 1,700 square feet. We added a training center of 4,000 square feet, but we do not house dogs in it. It can't accommodate them, it doesn't have air conditioning. So we need 5,000 to 6,000 square feet. We want to separate the boarding facility from the daycare facility.
Is a facility of this type regulated by any entity or inspected by any entity?
That's a really good question. It used to be the American Kennel Association, and they've gone under, and then it was Pet Care Services, and they've gone under. And there's a third group of people who've started a new group, and my question to them is I want to see their CVs and resumes because I don't want them to go. I need business people. You know, we have college degrees, and we're in the business of taking care of pets, but we have a passion for pets. So OSHA, I have my OSHA guideline books, but OSHA's never visited us. We have workman's comp, but workman's comp people don't get involved. So there is nobody taking a look at what we do. I would like to start that company because we're really good at what we do. We see about 3,000 dogs a month, you know, so we stay nice and busy.
Correction. There is one person, and that's code enforcement. And the most important sentence for me in this was, there have been no code enforcement cases in the past 5 years of operation. So they do have that oversight, and there hasn't been
I didn't know if there were any industry standards that were established that would say, you know, you need a larger site, a smaller site, so many square feet per dog, or anything like that.
It used to be, but there is no governing body, and that's our challenge in this industry, because the people that I compete with, we raise our standards. You know, we change out our mulch, we change out our dirt, we change out our gravel. We do a lot of different things that people aren't thinking about doing. And that's just what you said, code enforcement. We've been in business just over 8 years now, and we've never had a complaint issued against us.
And all the waste is hauled off site?
That's what I'm paying a lot of people to take care of.
I would imagine so. Thank you.
I invite you all to come out and look at it.
Sounds great.
It's a nice business.
Thanks.
Sounds like you're succeeding. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Any other questions that any commissioners have? Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Someone else say anything? Sure, absolutely. Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah, please come up and state your name and address for the record.
Sure.
And we'd
My
be
name and
happy-
address?
Your name and address.
Daphne Robb, 645 32nd Avenue Southwest here in
Good-
Vero.
Good
Were
evening.
you sworn earlier when we were asked if anybody was going to speak, if they
No.
would please be sworn? If anybody wants to speak on this matter, if they could please stand and be sworn by the clerk, please.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
So I wanted to come and support Kim and Sean in their efforts to expand their business, primarily because I'm one of their biggest customers. And I've lived here in Vero Beach about 8 years now. I've been using paw prints since they opened. And what I wanted to be able to have the opportunity to say is to start off where you left off, which is around, you know, the issue of inspection and concerns about the facility. And what I would tell you is this is one of the best run businesses I've ever seen. And I've been in Vero, like I said, 8 years. I've used other facilities in the area for dog boarding and grooming. I have 3 dogs, so I have a boatload. And I've had dogs my whole life and used boarding and grooming facilities in the past. And I can literally tell you I've never seen a business that's run this well for, like you're talking about, really an unregulated sort of business. So Kim and Sean are highly effective and professional in what they do. They spend the time and effort and money to educate themselves in an advanced way. They spend the time, effort, and money to educate their employees. They spend a lot of time in training. So there are fully trained people on staff, on site during the day, looking after all of these dogs that are there. So they've more than demonstrated to me time and time again that they can handle the volume that they deal with. My dogs have always been safe, well taken care of, and I can travel for business without a second thought about their well-being. They care about their customers, and they demonstrate that on a routine basis. And I would also tell you that they care about the community and that they take the concerns of the surrounding community very seriously. And they've always tried to run their business in a way that would be the least intrusive to that Point West development, and to do the best job that they can do to be respectful of that community and make sure that, you know, things are under control. And they do that through the things that I've said, which is training their staff, mentoring their staff. I must be nervous because I'm shaking. It's all you guys. And it's this chamber. All right, but anyway, the last thing I want to say, the last thing I want to say too is here in Vero Beach, you know, we live on small business and we live on the service industry here. And I would also want to hold them very high in that stature as well. I think you said you have 25 employees on staff. And like I said, they don't just employ 25 people. They mentor these people. They show them how to be professional. They've taught them how to be a professional employee in a professional business. And I, as a professional, really respect that and appreciate that. So I would tell you, hands down, in Indian River County and the surrounding counties, there is no better business that's unregulated than their business. So I would tell you, support them all that you can, and I thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Could we just get your name and address for the record, please, ma'am? I don't think the clerk caught that.
What are your name and address?
Okay, it's Daphne Robb.
Daphne?
Yeah, D-A-P-H-N-A. Robb, R-O-B-B. Address 645, 32nd Avenue, Southwest, Vero.
Okay, good.
Hi, gentlemen. My name is Carol Roberts. I live in Sebastian, Florida, 1314 Coverbrook Lane. I actually work here in this building, but have never had the opportunity to speak here before, so I hope I do an okay job. I first met Sean almost a couple of years ago now. We just had this little puppy, and you know, you got to bring him to puppy schools, so that's what we did. As time went on, we realized that this little puppy had quite the attitude issue, and they have helped us through for the last 2 years. For us, the facility there is not a luxury. If we want to go on vacation, there is no other place for us to take our dog. Sean is the only one that probably in this whole county would put up with him. We have used other facilities to board our dogs. We've had dogs all our lives. And I've never seen a business or any other kennel facility or grooming facility run like this before. They're all, I mean, it's like a spaceship. They've got walkie-talkies, and you get there, and within 2 minutes you have your dog in the car, and, you know, the respect that they show their customers and the respect then that we give them back, I hope, if we've made them proud, it is phenomenal. You just don't see it. The place is clean. The dog, you know, you're at training with a puppy and the dog goes to the bathroom, and within a second somebody scoops up behind you and gets it. You know, you feel like embarrassed, like you want to do it, you know. But yeah, I don't know how he does it, but all the people, and he has a lot of people who work there, are respectful, clean, courteous, attentive. And I know that it was from mentoring from him. I mean, I don't know how it could have been. You don't get the younger crowd that he seems to have there. I don't know what the age group is, but a lot younger than I am. And they're all spot on, dressed nice, always tell you how the day went and whatnot. So I'm 110% in favor of this. Silly me, I asked about boarding auto today at Christmas. They've been booked for months. You know, so the only thing wrong with this facility is it's just not big enough. It's you know, and as far as a businessman, I mean, I won't keep you much longer. I just say that I hadn't had the opportunity to meet Sean's wife before. I did do some research and read about them and their background, but Sean is a businessman. Unlike a lot of business people, I mean, look, it's not cheap to go there, okay? I have to say it's not a cheap place to go, but he doesn't just say, okay, your half an hour's up, go, go, go. I mean, he has spent so much time just with us, so I can't imagine with all the other people that he helps out through the last 8 years. For the amount of time he spent with us, we owe him. I'm here today because of that, not because I'm a public speaker. And I only found out about this yesterday, so I guess that's all I need to say. And respect would be the word. All the people, Sean, the pets, everybody. So I hope you pass it. Thank you.
Thanks for your kind words and your testimony. That's great. Anybody else wish to speak on this matter? Because I think we're ready to go to a vote, would be my guess. Do I have a motion?
Well, this is.
Want to discuss this further?
Well, this is clearly business that's growing. They're proposing to double in size.
Yeah.
And I think we've heard why they want to double. So I would move that we support staff's recommendations.
That's Dr. Day. Who seconded it?
Todd.
Todd Brugnano seconded. Let's take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous.
Thank you.
Get that? Thank you. The second thing on item number 3 of our agenda this evening is a request for preliminary PD plan plat approval for a project to be known as Provident Point Phase 1. This is also a quasi-judicial hearing, so anyone who anticipates wishing possibly to speak on this issue tonight, please stand up and be sworn in.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
John, Stan, you want to go ahead and give us your presentation?
Yes. Thank you, Chairman Zimmerman. For the record, John McCoy with the Planning Department. This is a preliminary PD request for Phase 1 of Providence Point, and it's a rather large first phase, and first thing I'd like to talk about a little bit about is process. This project did receive conceptual approval by the Board of County Commissioners in August of 2013. So from that conceptual plan, more details have been provided, it's been further refined, and it's now at the preliminary PD plan stage for phase 1, and it becomes before the Planning and Zoning Commission. If approved at this point, the next step would be the land development permit. That land development permit is actually construction authorization, and that's when you'd actually see changes on the ground and this infrastructure being constructed that would support the project. So this is sort of the second step, and the third step will be the land development permit. That's a staff review and approval. This is the location of the subject site, bordered on the east side by 58th Avenue, north by 53rd Street, and south by 49th Street. And the project is zoned PD.
Excuse me, Mr. McCoy.
TND.
Gentlemen, the acoustics in here, excuse me. Excuse me. You. The acoustics in here are very good, which means that we can hear you talking while I'm trying to listen to him speak.
Sorry about that.
Okay, if you want to talk, that's fine. Just go out in the hall.
Chill.
Thank you, Mr. McCoy.
The subject site zone PD, TND. To the north and west of the subject site, the property is zoned agricultural, and all that property is zoned ag, with the exception of the portion just north of it is RS3. And then as you come to the south of the subject site, on the south side of 49th, this properties are zoned RS3. To the east of the subject site, across 58th Avenue, is the Waterway Village planned development. Aerial gives you a feel for that. Largest physical feature is a lake, which was a sand mine in the past. On the west side of 58th Avenue, you can see the edge of Waterway Village. To the north, across 53rd Street, the properties are undeveloped. And to the south, across 49th Street, there's some residential development in that area. And west of the subject site, the ag zone property are typically in farming. There's a horse farm and some other agricultural endeavors to the west of the subject site. And this is phase 1, and it's a fairly large portion of the project. It's 100 acres. It'll support 196 units, and the density within phase 1 is 1.96. The overall project is 186 acres, so it's over half of the project being developed in the first phase, and it's mostly infrastructure, and it is infrastructure intensive, and that'll be a large part of the presentation that follows. And the next item I'd like to talk about is buffering and landscape buffering. And the slide shows the buffers in green. And generally, where you see the darker green, it's a type B buffer with a 6-foot opaque feature. Where you see the lighter green, it kind of opens up windows to the subject site, so there's less buffering there. And those are typically where there's adjacent to bodies of water, where you can look over that body of water and then into the project. There's still landscaping there, just not a 6-foot opaque landscape feature. Next item I'd like to talk about, and this is really a large part of what's being provided, is the traffic and infrastructure. Just starting at the northwest with the green star, that's a driveway onto 53rd Street, and that's a full access driveway onto 53rd Street. As you get closer to 58th Avenue on 53rd Street, that red star is a right in, right out. There's a median that'll prohibit left turns in and left turns out. As you round the corner coming south to the blue star, also a driveway which is limited to a right in, right out maneuver by other physical constraints. And then when you get further south on 58th Avenue to what's represented by the gold star, there is a full movement driveway, and the applicant will be providing right turn and left turn lanes at that intersection. And then as you get to 49th Street, the driveway that's has an orange star is full access driveway, and there'll be improvements provided there as well. And I'm going to get into some of those improvements as we go through these next series of slides. There are right-of-way dedications, and right-of-way dedications listed here need to be done prior to the issuance of a land development permit. So all those will be on the front end prior to going to any construction. So that's for 49th Street, 58th Avenue, and 53rd Street. They'll be right-of-way dedicated. Road paving, they're going to be required to pave the portion of 53rd Street to their western driveway, and that'll be a Phase 1 improvement. And then there'll be a portion of 49th Street that's improved as part of the Phase 1 improvements. Also within Phase 1, and these improvements primarily relate to all those driveways I just talked about with the stars, and it's a westbound left turn lane at the full connection on 53rd Street, a southbound turn lane at the right-in, right-out connection at 58th Avenue, a right and left turn lanes at the full connection on 58th Avenue, and a westbound turn lane at the easternmost full access connection to 49th Street. They're going to construct that western leg of 53rd Street that's west of 58th Avenue. And essentially what it'll do is it'll line up with the section of 53rd Street across the street is the intent there. So it should essentially line up with the receiving lanes and the transition lanes rather than be offset as it is now. And they'll contribute their fair share to the intersection improvement for 58th Avenue and 49th Street. Other dedications and improvements within Phase 1, they're going to contribute their fair share to the ultimate intersection cost of 58th and 45th. They're going to do some signal timing work to optimize the signal timing at 58th and 41st, and they're going to build a temporary wire traffic signal at 58th and 49th, which is opposed to a mast arm. Those mast arms will go in when the intersection is built out to its ultimate build out. So rather than put those in as a temporary, it'll be a span wire that'll go in. For pedestrian improvements, there will be sidewalks along 49th Street, 58th Avenue, and 43rd. Essentially, they'll be providing sidewalks for all of the Phase 1 area that's adjacent to a public right-of-way, and that's what those numbers essentially represent. They'll also be providing transit stops, and there are 2 transit stops along 58th Avenue, and they're coordinating that with our MPO, our Metropolitan Planning Organization. This is the stormwater, and much of the stormwater is being developed in Phase 1, again, where the infrastructure is being advanced. The blue areas you see on the far western or left side of the slide as I'm looking at it are golf course lakes. Golf course is not being constructed in this phase, but again, the stormwater is to serve the rest of the project when it occurs. Environmental aspects of Phase 1, and this was all reviewed at the conceptual level, and as we get to the preliminary level, there's greater and greater detail. There's a bald eagle's nest on the subject site. The eagle's nest is physically located in Phase 3, so it's not located in an area that's subject to construction at this point. And the conceptual plan provides that area as a preserve, so there won't be any construction as the conceptual plan lays out immediately adjacent to the nest. But in this case, there are some setbacks and restrictions, and that will border onto Phase 1, where there'll be some timing restrictions for construction activity within 330 feet of the nest. And that radius does sweep into the Phase 1 portion, and they'll be restricted on construction between October and May for mating season. Other item is they'll need to get a FWC permit for and follow their management plan for the Gopher Tortoise relocation, and also for wading birds with some of the fill they're doing primarily in the ditches where they're culverting some of the canals for roadway improvements. They'll be providing littoral zone as sort of replacement habitat for those wading birds. Also, continuation of Phase 1 environmental. They'll meet their upland set-aside in Phase 1. The surface water body filling, which I talked about, mostly canals, mostly to some grove ditches on site, and that'll be replaced with the littoral zone. And then tree mitigation plan, they'll need to do that as they get to the land development permit for any specimen trees removed during this phase of construction. With that, staff does recommend that the Planning and Zoning Commission approve with the conditions as listed in the staff report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCoy. I have a question. It's really about the process. When we get to the next step, which is, site plan approval and things like that, is that coming in chunks, or are we going to see one giant Phase 1? I mean, you've given us such a small piece of paper here, you really can't, I mean, I know this mostly has to do with infrastructure, fair enough, but I mean, we can't even really see what is being proposed here.
And
So help me through that.
there are going to be a couple of different processes as we move forward. For any residential development, the way the code lays it out is 3 units or greater requires approval by the Planning and Zoning Commission. So anything that would require multifamily development, townhomes, things like that, that would end up coming back before you all. Much of the commercial development will not. The staff will see the site plan for that block, but commercial development less than 150,000 square feet is reviewed at a staff level. To throw one more wrinkle into it, if they choose to plat lots, which they haven't right now they've laid it out as the overall blocks on this preliminary plat. If they chose to actually plat lots, whether it be townhome lots or single-family lots, that would come back before you all as a plat that you would see. So 2 out of the 3 processes bring it back before you all.
Well, let me ask the question this way. To what degree, if any, is what is, because there's obviously far more depicted on this than streetscape improvements and curb cuts and intersection improvements. To what degree, this is ostensibly a land plan coded in a way that's unintelligible. It's very small. I mean, to what degree, if any, is this locked in stone? I mean, is this the plan? Are we approving this plan, or are we improving the improvements for this plan?
We are approving this plan, and from this point, single-family permits could be issued. Commercial site plans would come back to staff. Any multifamily over 3 units would come back before you all, and you would see how it fit into this layout. So,
well, it's hard for me to even see where the commercial, it's so small. I'm trying to even figure out where the commercial is and where the multifamily is and where, it's very difficult to decipher that. I mean, maybe that's just me. I don't know how my other commissioners feel. And I'm sure it's very good and it's well planned. I don't mean to cast doubt on whether it's a good plan or not. It's very hard for me to decipher at this scale what it is I don't even know where the commercial is. Where's the commercial?
I can explain that from a slide. And again, I have the benefit of having reviewed the conceptual plan and having looked at the preliminary and full-size drawing. So I can understand your
It's very difficult.
looking at trying to interpret the 11 by 17 graphics. And let me just go ahead and go to that slide on our graphic. By and large, the commercial is up in this area with these rows being much of the commercial. There being some commercial in this area. And this is the hotel site that was in the original conceptual plan, not proposed within this phase. And again, this is something that would come back before the Planning and Zoning Commission as a site plan. The commercial buildings would not. The residential, as you get down into some of the townhomes and multifamily in the southern area and in the western area would. And some of these are proposed as mixed-use buildings and may come back before you all. So that's sort of a...
So, John, we're just looking at the northeast section. That is part of phase 1 in the commercial build-out?
Gray area.
The commercial is concentrated in the northeast section. The residential is, and again, these are recreational improvements.
Okay.
In the south, those would not necessarily come back before you all. These are residential improvements in the central areas that, as a multifamily product, would come back before you.
And Mr. Chairman, if I could just mention Stan Bowling, Community Development Director. Apologize if you guys didn't have the kind of information you'd like. I know there was a lot of detail with the conceptual plan.
Yeah,
and we had a
we've
lot of
seen that.
PowerPoints to show you where everything was, and this lines up right with it. I mean, this is not deviating from the approved conceptual plan. And the stress in terms of the graphics we had with the backup was precisely what's the area and what infrastructure improvements are going in, because they're not constructing vertical, although again, it's
Yeah.
completely consistent with what you
Okay.
all saw with the conceptual plan. And I apologize if it's confusing for you.
Where's the clubhouse again?
The recreational improvements and
Okay.
club facility are just north of the
Okay.
lake.
Thank you.
So the developer, obviously, there's a lot of traffic and engineering deals that have had to be made for a project of this size, which is very important, and that needs to happen before, I assume that's the driving force behind this, because that needs to happen before any land development can occur. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And so what they're trying to do here is start to cut in their roads and start to do land clearing and start to do the
Earth moving and-
infrastructure.
Right, that's
Okay.
correct.
All right.
And it's actually kind of unusual to have this much infrastructure up front, but
It's
that's,
big.
that's
It's
what
impressive.
they're doing a lot up front. So we kind of like seeing something like this.
Yeah.
But what you're assuring us is that, I mean, I already know the answer to this. You guys have looked at this entire master plan, 1 through 4, and it's the way you want it.
That's correct.
Okay. Any other questions of staff before I ask the applicant or anyone else who wishes to
Is
speak?
the point you were trying to make is if we're going to approve one, we need to be aligned with the entire project again? Is that what your point was?
No, it's the scale of this. I mean, I have comfort for 2 reasons, Brad. One, because we've looked at it before, a little more blown out. And second, because unfortunately I've sat up here for 6 years and I know you guys know exactly what you're doing, so that carries it with me. It's just that, wow, I mean, this is such a huge project and we're putting on a lot on a piece of paper. I mean, we can get down into minutia of setbacks and, you know, what kind of trees and buffers we're going to have. I mean, that would be number 5,000 on the list of, when you're talking about this scale. So, you know,
point.
but I'm comfortable. I'm comfortable with it. If you know, with your assurances,
I just have 2 questions. One is on your recommendations, section 3, subsection D, it says all buildings in the marketplace shall be 2 stories or have a vertical mass similar to a 2-story building unless otherwise approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission. And that's something that'll come back to us later on.
The commercial aspects of the buildings may not be, as long as they're consistent. We carried over this from the conceptual plan, this preliminary plat language, and it will affect all preliminary plats. If anything that wasn't consistent with that condition then would come back before the Planning and Zoning Commission to be evaluated by the Planning and Zoning Commission, and we would either be making a recommendation for approval or not to approve based on the staff's review.
Okay.
And then seek your input.
Okay. And one other question, in section 6 on that, it's about the restriction of planting and maintenance of Caribbean fruit fly and citrus greening host plants. And so that controls that up front. But once it's all over, then there's no control over what's planted.
This is a restriction that goes on the final plat as a notice to owners going forward.
Good, yeah.
So it's intended to be a permanent warning going forward that it is restricted, that those plants not be planted or maintained.
Yep.
okay. If the applicant would like to speak, now's the time. Please state your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening. My name is Joseph Scholke with Scholke, Biddle and Stoddard, Vero Beach, Florida. I'm a civil engineer. I've worked in this project, and I've worked with Stan and John for several years. Andrew Kennedy with Proctor Construction is also here. He's going to be doing the construction of this project and the management of the project. We've reviewed the staff report, and we concur with their findings, with their conditions, what have you. Mr. Zimmerman, I did want to just explain to you the plans that were submitted. There was actually a lot of detail with the application. I mean, it's a 46-sheet set of plans, so it's there. It's a public record. Another thing I wanted to mention, maybe sort of correct something John had said earlier. John, you said that we had submitted a preliminary plat that just showed the blocks, and that's not true. Our initial application had the blocks. At our TRC discussion, we said, hey, we should probably show all the lots now, and we have, and all the lots have been in the last 2 resubmittals, every lot, every block, all dimensioned, and So, no, we do agree with the statement you said, that we still have to go in and site plan the blocks that are multifamily in nature, or townhomes. But we do have single-family homes, single-family blocks too on the preliminary plat that are shown. As far as your question, Mr. Zimmerman, about stuff being submitted in chunks, if you will, there's a large project. There's a lot of infrastructure. The plans that we submitted with the application, like I said, it's 46 sheets of civil plans, another 20 sheets of landscape plans. They show a lot of that detail. It's all public record. But as far as the chunks and stuff like that, I've done a lot of work in Windsor in the past. We did, in years past, I worked at Grand Harbor when I worked in another firm. And, the pods, if you will, or blocks came in as separate site plan applications when you have a project of this size. So you will see, I think staff said, I think commercial maybe doesn't go to you and go staff approval, but you will see site plans for the clubhouse tract. The commercial tract's 9 acres in size. And when we have the design of that, there's a hotel tract you'll probably see. There'll be, a block of multifamily units. So at that time, we'll prepare detailed plans within that boundary of that tract or block that shows the buildings, specific landscaping and parking within that tract.
Great.
The plans we submitted here basically shows all the lots. It's sort of like a subdivision plan that you see where you show all the lots and you show in detail the streets, the water, sewer, drainage, the landscape buffers in the perimeter and the common landscaping. All that's in the application and plans we submitted. What we didn't show is detail of what this building on this tract is going to look like, because frankly we don't know. We do know that we have concept plans. It was kind of like a plan book, what everything looks like. This was submitted at the conceptual PD level. So the Board of County Commissioners saw it. Your board saw it a year and a half ago. So we have that information. And if you are interested, I'm just going to offer this, and if you don't think you have time, but the Prezi presentation that we provided for Board of County Commissioners, it's on the internet. Andrew Kennedy could bring it up in 10 minutes and show you some of the things John was pointing out, the commercial area, what the clubhouse is going to look like and stuff like that. If you want, I think we could probably do that. But other than that, I'm here to answer any of your questions.
I don't. Thank you.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. Any other questions? Anyone else that wishes to speak on this matter? No? Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
That's Todd Brignano.
Second.
Got that? All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item number 4 on our agenda this evening is a public hearing. It's the Hampton Woods East PD. It's a request for a conceptual PD special exception use approval for a 4-lot single-family planned development. Mr. McCoy?
Yes. Thank you, Commissioner Zimmerman. For the record, John McCoy with the Planning Department. Just one moment. Let me get the slideshow queued up. And this is a request for a 4-lot subdivision plan development. And let me get into a little bit more detail. As far as process, it follows the same process actually as the development that came before you all on the Providence Point. In this case, it's just a much smaller scale, but it follows that same process. Comes to the Planning and Zoning Commission for review. Planning and Zoning Commission makes a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners. If the Board of County Commissioners were to conceptually approve this, it would come back before you all at the preliminary PD stage. In this case, it would be a 4-lot subdivision. Based upon your recommendation, the board is to consider the request and approve it with conditions, or deny it. This is the location of the subject site, and it's located just south of 16th Street on the east side of 46th Avenue. And it's roughly 4 acres in size, and you can see there are other large lots in the area, and you can see some smaller lots to the south that are accessed from 43rd Avenue. This is a close-up aerial of the subject site, and north is actually to the left. So there are homes on the west side of 46th Avenue. This is the subject property, and it's hard to see on the aerial overlay, but the lot lines are superimposed over that, showing you the 4 lots on the aerial. This is the existing roadway, 46th Avenue, and the infrastructure improvements that are proposed, which are primarily water service, fire hydrant, and street light are the improvements that are proposed with the subject site. And the stormwater tract is on the east side, rear of the subject lot, so the street would be out here. And when you get to the layout, again, north is to the left, 46th Avenue, infrastructure, proposed stormwater to the east of the subject site, and the 4 lots, 1 through 4, front being to the west. As far as dedications and improvements go, there's a utility easement being dedicated, and essentially a dry line is being stubbed to the site, and that'll facilitate a connection to sewer when it becomes available, where right now sewer's not available, and based on 4 lots, it's not feasible to get sewer to the site. Street light, there's a new street light that'll be constructed essentially in the center or towards the middle of the 2 interior lots, and then a fire hydrant that'll also be constructed when the water line comes down, and that's a benefit to all the properties in the area. As far as PD waivers, most of the waivers relate to the roadway, or several of them relate to the roadway, and that's the right-of-way width. Our normal right-of-way width is 60 feet for a swale type of drainage system. In this case, there's 40 feet existing. The applicant's not proposing to change that. It's an existing condition. They'd like to keep that existing condition, essentially to keep a lot of the character of the street the same and preserve what is essentially there. Same for the next request, minimum lane width. For a 2-lane, low-density roadway, the code requires 20 feet. In this case, there's 18 feet of pavement existing to accommodate 2-lane traffic. Again, for a very low density, low number of units being served by the road, Public Works did not have a problem with that. So they're looking to keep that existing condition the same with that 18 feet, serving these 4 additional lots. As far as rear yard setbacks, this is really the one-dimensional waiver that is being requested, and it's reducing the rear setback, which is 25 feet based on the RS2 zoning district, to 15 feet for the principal structure, and reducing it from what the code allows, which is 10 feet for structures like pool enclosures, to 5 feet for structures like pool enclosures. So that would be one of the requested waivers dimensionally. That is along the rear property line only, and the rear property line, there is the stormwater tract. So in looking at the project from the outside, you won't see those property lines, but the buildings will be set back 40 feet, and the screen enclosures would be set back 30 feet from the edge of the property because it will be on the other side of the stormwater tract, essentially. As far as public benefits, we always ask developments, plan developments, what public benefits are you providing, in requesting any sort of waivers? And these are the 2 that are being provided. One's a substantial one, really, which is the fire hydrant, which will be able to serve the properties that are on the west side of 46th Avenue that are existing homes, and then also some of the other lots in the area, as well as the subject site. And then tree preservation area along 46th Avenue. Again, that's to keep the character the same. I want to talk a little bit more about the tree preservation area. And the applicant's proposing a 15-foot wide tree preservation area. And the staff is looking at a 25-foot wide tree preservation area. And this is the one place where the applicant and the staff have a difference. Staff is recommending a condition that a 25-foot wide tree preservation easement be provided. And the whole purpose and intent of the tree preservation easement is really to keep the character of the street the same, which is the justification for the planned development. Staff believes that to meet that purpose, it needs to be 25 feet wide. 25 feet wide is our minimum buffer width. It allows for filling out of the canopy. It allows for greater preservation and protection of existing material, as well as the ability to transplant material. And lastly, I'd like to point out in granting that rear yard waiver where structures can go closer to the rear property line, essentially it just shifts the structure. So with the additional 10 feet of tree preservation area, they're not losing any building envelope. That envelope is just essentially shifting a little further back on what is a very large lot. So staff believes that the 25-foot wide buffer is justified in that respect. And with that, I would like to touch on the tree mitigation. Tree mitigation, the applicant's going to need to develop a tree mitigation plan actually prior to the preliminary PD. There are really two areas of construction that are going to occur. One is that water line that you see on the west side of the property. May require some tree removal, might require removal of specimen trees that hasn't been evaluated yet. And then the other is the stormwater tract, which is on the east side of, and there may be some specimen trees. This area is less dense generally than the area along the road, but if any specimen trees are removed, the applicant would need to mitigate those in going through that process. And that would be evaluated at the preliminary plat time for the tree mitigation plan. With that, staff does recommend that the Planning and Zoning Commission recommend that the Board of County Commissioners grant conceptual PD plan approval for Hampton Woods East PD with the conditions listed in the staff report, and that includes the 25-foot tree preservation easement along that road frontage. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation, Mr. McCoy. Any questions of staff?
That undeveloped land behind it, is that able to be developed in the future?
Yes. It could be another infill development at that location. Again, they would be going through a similar process, whether it be a straight preliminary plat or plan development. But yes, it could be.
Relative to the sewer service, is there any place in the county where sewer service is actively being added, or what is the future for sewage in these areas that are fed by septic tanks, that are served by septic tanks?
Our utilities department has a petition program whereby if people desire and the proper majority is reached, a petition process, and I'm not aware of any capital projects that are designed without that petition in place, but I think the petition process is the primary mechanism for getting sewer to existing homes and businesses.
I think if I could just add to what John said, he's correct. That's one of the primary drivers, and that tends to be in areas that are perhaps more dense. It's a little more customers to hook up. There are also sometimes those development driven. If a developer has a large enough project that he has to have sewer regardless, and this is a small project, so it's not required in our connection matrix, they may pull a line much further along a roadway, and then sewer opens up in that particular area. Those are probably the two primary ways inside the urban service area right now, because there are master plan lines down many roads, but kind of finishing that out would probably be developer driven or petition driven at this point.
And for petition driven, what side is that? Neighborhood, a block?
It could be any area. But it could be a block. It could be a number of neighborhoods getting together. So it varies.
Any other questions of staff? This is quasi-judicial, so if anyone wishes to speak on this tonight, please stand up so that you can be sworn in. I should have done that at the beginning. Sorry.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
I think now is a good time to hear from the applicant, so if they're present, please, can you state your name and address for the record, please?
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Wesley Mills. I'm with Mills Short & Associates. We're located at 800 8th Street, Vero Beach, Florida. And I'm the engineer of record, as well as representing the agent representing the owner for this project. What we're doing, basically, as outlined by Mr. McCoy and Mr. Bowling, is a 4-lot subdivision, or 4 lots within an existing subdivision on a private street. As far as in reference to utilities and provisions for sewer and septic tanks, one of the things we are putting in is a dry line so that there is a plan in place through the utility department capital project. Once 43rd widening project comes along, they do intend to extend the sewer force main at Old Savannah subdivision just west of our project. At that point, that's why we're providing provisions to tie into it. So at that point, the 4 lots would tie into the county's system. As far as the tree preservation area, how this project started, and like Mr. McCoy mentioned, is the existing lots are very similar in nature to the proposed project. None have tree preservation areas set aside. We account for the stormwater management tract to comply with all the Indian River County requirements as well as St. John's. Between the existing property lines for the 4 sites go to approximately the center of the existing roadway. So between the 20-foot roadway easement and approximately the 45-foot width of the stormwater system and the 15-foot tree preservation area, you eat up almost 25% of the site. The tree preservation area is not a requirement of any of the ordinance. However, through conversations and with the existing homeowners, the applicant, and also Indian River County staff, we chose that it would be in the best interest of all parties to go ahead and put in a tree preservation area. We proposed 15 foot. It seems that the staff would prefer a 25-foot buffer. So our thoughts is we would prefer to not eat up any more of this of the existing property, and so that we can build homes and have a nice neighborhood that's consistent with the surrounding development. If there's any other questions, I'd be happy to answer that I did not include.
John, let me make sure I understand the map. Normally, the county would require the road width right-of-way to be 60 feet. In this case, we're agreeing to let it remain 40 feet. So 10 feet, I'm just trying to do the math. Instead of 10 feet of roadway, one way to think about it is there's 10 feet of extra trees. Is that
Correct.
right?
That is
Instead
correct.
of 15 feet
Right.
of trees, we have 25 feet. It could be 10 feet more of roadway and 15 feet of trees, or it can be
Right. And
no more roadway and 25 feet of trees.
Correct. Once you dedicate that additional 10 feet, which we're not having them dedicate, the trees that were in that right-of-way would be subject to any utility provider removing them. So, yes.
Any other questions of the applicant?
Yes. As far as the existing road, this is your parcel, Mr. Mills, that has a 20-foot easement, and then the other lots on the other side of the road also dedicate 20 feet. And so will this be still a private road?
Correct. It is a private road, all lots. And I say approximately the middle. At our location in front of our 4 lots, it is approximately the middle of the road. However, as you get further down the street, one side of the easement may be more on the eastern property or the western property. It just depends. But approximately, it's down the middle. But it is a private road, and there are cross easements or ingress-egress easements for all homeowners.
What type of maintenance provisions are there in the existing condition?
There is a maintenance agreement. I believe there is a POA, but I know that there's probably residents that can speak to that better than I can, just because I'm not familiar with the current POA requirements. However, I know that it is a sharing program between all the property owners within that Hampton Woods area.
And as far as going into the future, what are you proposing for maintenance?
We would contribute to maintenance just how we have since we've owned it, as far as a percentage of your frontage on the road. No change. There would be no change to the current POA.
Okay. If you drive down the existing street, what is it like on the Hampton side as opposed to the East Hampton side? Is there any difference?
No, other than that, this particular 4 acres was subdivided later than the adjacent property owners. I believe that was done back in the mid-'80s. I could be not correct on that, but I believe it was mid-'80s. And so there's just a later development. Had they been developed or plotted all at the same time, there would be no difference.
You're coming in with a replat on this one? Is that, no?
Never been platted.
Okay, I thought they had said that it was an existing subdivision, and it's not. It's just a 4.9 acre parcel or 3.9 acre parcel, whatever. Last question, as far as the tree protection area, are there 25 feet of protected trees on the developed side of the road at this time?
No.
So as you're driving down the road, that 25 feet is not appreciably, trees and everything. It's just wide open. Because I'm looking at the aerial, and it looks like they're pretty much canopy coverage all over the subdivision, except for, the side yards.
The existing street is heavily canopied by oaks that run on both sides of the private road. However, our side would be significantly more dense than the adjacent side.
Is the road paved?
Yes.
It's a question for John. You reference precedents on the 25-foot natural buffer in other areas. Were they of the same size and scale as this proposed development?
Yes, and it's primarily speaking about planned developments where that's the default width is the 25 feet. And we explained in this staff report that the lots are similar for the transitional area, but to achieve that same purpose or the character, we thought that 25 feet was appropriate width as far as allowing for all the things we mentioned, the tree preservation, the canopy, filling out the additional planting if necessary.
These are mature oaks? Is that what, mostly mature oaks?
Yes, there are a variety of stages up and down the street.
Are there sidewalks along the street?
No, sir.
They're not.
Would there have to be sidewalks?
Based on the code, there does not, with our sidewalk criteria, once you get generally to the acre-sized lots, the sidewalks are not required.
Yeah. Okay.
Beautiful lots.
Yeah, they are.
Beautiful. Anyone else wish to speak on this? Now's the time. Please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Hi, my name's Ann Mays. I live at 1545 46th Avenue. I live directly across from the proposed area. It's too bad, and I wish I had thought of it, to bring a picture of the road from the street view, because for all intents and purposes, it is a fully canopied road, and I know some of you have been to my home, so you know what it looks like. We have some concerns as neighbors. This is a private road that is kept up by the neighbors. We do not have any formal way of providing for the road, so some of us have significant amounts of money in the paving of this road as opposed to others. And so the pavement as it exists, some of it is very new, and we just did half the road, I would say about a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years, and the other half was done maybe 6 or 7 years ago, so it's all very new. So we are concerned about our investment on that paving. I think that the division of the property into 4 acre lots, basically, is reasonable. But I do think that a 25-foot easement is needed for the preservation of the trees that are there. Some of the more mature oaks are set back off the road on 46th Avenue. And if it was only a 15-foot easement, we would lose some of that canopy, which would really affect the character of the road there. So as far as the usage of the property, I think it's reasonable, but we need to be very careful about the trees on this road, because this road is extremely unique within the mainland area, that it is very much like a beach road and fully canopied. And the character of the street could be drastically affected by the power having to go in on that side and then possible loss of some of those trees.
What's the nature of your concern about the road? I mean, if it's in good condition, what are you afraid is going to
Well, we would be concerned about, you know, trucks on it, construction, that sort of thing, that how would that road be maintained at the level that it is now? If there's power trucks or things having to go in, there's just
So there is no agreement amongst the homeowners,
there
no
is
formal agreement?
formal homeowners association in Hampton Woods, no. We work cooperatively as much as possible. But some of us have thousands and thousands of dollars in the pavement.
Mr. Chairman, I think the concern is that, and I've seen it with these type of easement agreements in the past, is they've gone ahead and they've gone first and forked out all of the money to pay the road. And now the Hamptons East folks are coming in without paying for any of that, just taking advantage of all the benefit for it. It's going to increase the traffic, so you're immediately setting up the folks at odds across the street from each other.
Any suggested potential remedy for something like that?
I don't know. I mean,
that's just got to be by mutual consent of the neighbors. That's nothing we can.
It's nothing for us.
And that's correct.
Yeah.
And you know, usually you run into this problem with a dirt road, and it's
called the free rider problem.
That's the thing. Ms. Mays, I can't remember the last time that I've been to your house. As far as the tree canopy, I can see it on the aerials. Remind me how much fill is added to the lot as it comes off of the road. Does it start right away, or is it
No, usually the fill doesn't start for probably about 15 feet from the center of the road, and then, well, maybe even 20 if you go from the center of the road. Some of the houses in there are so old that there is no fill. It just depends. My house happens to be set up on a fill because it's one of the newer homes. But some of the homes have been there for a long time, so there is no fill at all.
Where are the utilities, the electric utilities in there now?
The electric utilities are for the west side of the road are on the west side of the property. So there is no power going down through there at this point. Where it was on elevated poles through the center of that property to get to a few houses in the back. But since the hurricanes, I think that's all been taken down, or something has happened, I'm not sure what. But they used to come in and clear those lines, but I don't even think those lines are existing anymore.
Do you have the equivalent of 25 feet of protected trees in front of your home? Or do you have improvements within that area?
I would say that I have very close to 25 feet on the front of my property. I have in my front yard.
Can you show us which one of yours is on the aerial, just for interest's sake?
Give me just a second.
My home is
North, so 16th Street's over here.
right. Mine, that's not mine. The second, that is mine right there. So if you see in the front there, I probably have, I don't know, 8 or 10 very mature oaks right there. And then those oaks go, you know, almost to the middle of the road. In front of my house, it's pretty much canopied.
So that's lot 2 on our
Yes.
attachment 3?
Yes.
But you could cut down a tree on your property along the road. Is that right?
I could.
And you're asking them not to have that same right.
I don't think you have a right with oak trees, do you? If it's a live oak, you have to get approval by the city unless it's sick?
Well, in the county, lots that are over an acre, they do have to get a tree removal permit on a single family lot. And I don't recall if her lot is over
There's
an acre or not.
clearly, but presumably there's a different level of protection
That's
from
correct.
tree preservation area.
That's correct.
And
There would be.
I do not have live oaks on mine. Mine are laurel oaks. I wouldn't want to cut them down. But some of those power lines that would be proposed would be within some pretty mature oaks. And if you look at the aerial, the west side of those properties are much more thick with foliage than the back side. The back side is very thin.
would you be
It's
willing to grant a
mostly
25-foot tree preservation area on your property?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that.
I think the other thing, Mr. Chairman, as far as the 15 feet versus the 25 feet, if I can put on my old forestry hat, it's just a matter of the protection of the root system. If you have only 15 feet servicing a mature oak tree, you're going to drastically affect the health and survivability of that tree. Once you expand it to more 25 feet, you're increasing the chance that it would survive through the construction and development project or process. So I think that's the reason behind staff's recommendation for the 25 feet, is just to maintain the character of the road and ensure the survivability of the trees after construction is done.
Makes sense?
Makes sense to me.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Mason.
Good evening. Wesley Mills, Mills Short and Associates. One thing, or actually 2 items that I would like to just go back over. One, Mr. DeBraw, respectively, want to correct you on your statement as far as the west side paid for the roadway. I believe all parties, not just the west side, east and west side, all paid and pay to maintain. Now, some homeowners have been better than other homeowners since there's not a formal agreement in place with paying. However, it's not one side did it and then the other side's going to benefit from it. The other thing that I want to mention is on the tree preservation area, the intent by nobody that buys the homes here on these 4 lots is to come and just start cutting down trees. The tree preservation, like Commissioner Zimmerman mentioned, it's in fact that it is something we're offering so to guarantee that no trees would be cut down. However, that doesn't mean 10 feet and 15 feet beyond that people are going to just come in and start whacking down trees. I believe the people that buy the properties are buying it for the character of the street and the lots, and their intent is to preserve the character as well.
By having a 25-foot buffer, will that diminish the value?
Somewhat, yes.
Arguably, it'll enhance the value.
They always told me that, you know, if you had a treed lot, it was worth 20% more than a plain lot. And I just have to think that if I'm driving down this road and I see a canopied road, I'd want to try and preserve something like
You got a high-class problem, buddy.
Well, I don't think anybody's anybody's up here saying after 15 feet we're going to start clearing the lot.
No one's accusing you
but
of that.
that's the impression that.
No one's accusing you of that. Thanks. Anybody else wish to speak on this tonight? Your name and address for the record, please, sir.
Sure. Good evening. Craig Callan. I live on 1575 46th Avenue. I'm the lot next to the maze, right across from the planned development. I think that Ann has been very eloquent as far as, we are a very small, I would call it a country road. And we have no issues. The mills have met with us in advance and answered a lot of our questions. I do have a concern about if the county is saying 25-foot setback, we of course would like it. As Ann said, I
mean
would.
25-foot tree preservation.
Tree preservation, thank
Okay.
you. Because the beauty of it, and the reason we all moved there, I've been there only for, I say only, for about 25 years, but others have been there longer, it is a dark country canopied road. And even when I saw that there's going a light in the middle, it kind of changes the character of the country road that we have. I'm not a public speaker, but when we talk about the impact on the road, yes, both sides have paid for it, but at the same time, it's just been done. So if we have heavy construction and it's not a county road, I don't think it was constructed like a county road. If there is heavy trucks going in there, the impact is going to be from the construction trucks. So I'd be curious whether or not who'd be responsible, since we've just invested the money in the roads.
I think that's for you to work out amongst yourselves as homeowners, but generally people of goodwill can, and that's about the best advice I can give you. Take lots of pictures before, walk the road with the applicant, try to reach the best understanding you can, and
Make sure heavy trucks put down a little dirt at the apron of the road so they don't crack the edge of the road as they're coming in. These are little things you can do to protect the road.
but ultimately the government doesn't own the road, you guys do, so it's really a solution you have to seek out and enforce amongst yourselves.
Well, we would just like to, keep the integrity of the neighborhood. It is a nice, small neighborhood, and
beautiful.
I agree with everything that Ann has said, and with the 25-foot tree mitigation or whatever, I don't think we have any issues with what the mills are saying. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you. Any other people? Yes, sir. Your name and address, please.
My name is Dwight Baker, 1590 46th Avenue, Vero Beach. I live the first piece of property adjoining 16th Street, and to the south of me is the project we're talking about.
To the south of you. Okay.
Yes, I'm 1590 46. I'm right next to 16th Street on the canal.
Okay.
I've been there, right. I've been there since 1991. We talked about mitigation. My property has 50 feet of mitigation. Our house is all natural. Our woods are natural. We want to keep it that way. I have no objections to the project other than, one, I want clarification of where the utility lines are going. I will not permit utility lines going to the front of that property on 16th Avenue. Absolutely will not. Now that is up to them and what they want to do. I do like the project in the sense that they're going to have drainage going back to the back side of the property. That would be to the east. As I understand Mr. Mills, there will be more fill put in there to go south. When I first moved there, that property was fairly clear. Now it's filled with exotic, completely taken over with a lot of good native stuff in there. My wife is a native plant lover. We have a lot of native plants. We hate to see somebody come in there and try to destroy the whole character of the street. Mr. Callan had lived there a short time before I. Mrs. May moved in, what, about 10 years ago? They improved the road themselves, really spent some money on it, and I can't blame her. As far as mitigation on her side of the property, the trees are looking good and they're looking nice. I can't say that you can have an issue with that. But my other issue is, and I'm still confused, what we're talking about, a 25-foot mitigation area.
It's a tree preservation area.
Oh, okay.
Tree preservation
Where did
area.
that start? At the middle of the road, edge of the road, or what?
It starts at the edge of that 20-foot easement / right-of-way that's going to remain, and it's on the, well, essentially 20 feet from the center line, if you came
Right.
out.
So presumably, from the center line of the road, there's probably, what, 9 feet of pavement or something?
It's about 10.
And then there would be another 11 feet of...
And then 25.
And then 25 feet.
In other words, we're talking about 45 feet from the edge of the center line of the road.
Yep.
I'll accept that. That is good.
Yeah.
But the other thing as I said, the only concern I have is I have not heard where the utility lines are going.
Well, it looks to me like the water line runs down between the lots to the north and then along the front. Is that correct? Is that what's shown on this plan, Mr. Mills?
Make sure.
That is correct. So
I
the,
can see
so
why.
the dry conduit that we're stubbing in place for future sewer connection, that stops, let's see, at the northeast corner, right there, yes.
Got it.
Now
And the water
wa-
line runs parallel to that?
It does, yes.
Okay.
And then the water line then turns west.
Correct.
And then-
Okay.
In the front and runs along the easement, the current easement that's in place, just as close to, in an effort not to impact any
And electric
trees.
goes down 46th, presumably?
The,
Maybe you don't know the answer to that. I don't know. I'm sure it must.
yes, the current, it's got to be underground, I assume, but I'm not completely.
Speculation,
Yeah,
yeah.
on the electric, I'm not sure at this point.
So that's the only real issue that I have, clarification of that, and maintaining that. I'm all for the project, and I want to maintain the character of the neighborhood. And that's it. Thank
Fair
you.
enough. Thank you. Anyone else? Any further discussion, any further questions? Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve with staff recommendations.
It's Mr. Bragnano.
Second.
It's Dr. Day. Let's have a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item number 5, Commissioners' Matters. I have one, if you will indulge me for just a minute.
Excuse, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, I'm sorry.
One more public hearing.
I know, but this is just automatic. Do we have to do this one? Item number 4B, consideration of land. Why do you simplify things on my last night? We come up with an idea to
Sorry.
simplify things.
Had to.
Incredible. Item number 4, public hearing. Item B, consideration of LDR amendment to section 91528, allowing for P&Z Commission approval of certain modifications to PD setbacks and other dimensional criteria.
I'll take this one, Mr. Chairman, and this is at the direction of the board. And it is an LDR amendment that came as a result of the Marsh Island PD modification proposal that you all saw back in the summer. The board saw it in September, and you might recall there was a modification to for setbacks, rear yard setbacks for 8 lots along the marina, internal to the project, not along the perimeter of the project itself. And it was minor in nature. It was to allow, instead of a 10-foot setback, reduce that to 8-foot setback for portions of the rear porch area. And the board followed your recommendation and approved that. That also had the support for the internal aspects of the project from the Architectural Review Committee for Marsh Island itself. And so there were some, again, it was a fairly minor amendment. Now, the existing process for modifying a PD setback, reducing a setback, or say a lot width, something like that, those all go before you all at a public hearing and the Board of County Commissioners at a public hearing. And that's because changing those characteristics could affect compatibility, so it has a pretty high scrutiny level. The board directed staff to explore change, and that's what's before you all tonight, to streamline minor PD setback modifications like Marsh Island, to have public hearing before the Planning and Zoning Commission, but they could do without looking at it. They would trust you all with that authority. And so the amendment that's before you all is to require a P&Z public hearing, but not a board hearing for minor PD setback dimensional requirement changes with criteria that would line up with a similar request to the Marsh Island. That would be that the change is not affecting any lots or units at the project perimeter. The reductions are limited to 20% of the previously approved requirement, and it's supported by either the Property Owners Association or Architectural Board to make sure it's compatible internally to the project. So with that, staff recommends that you all recommend the board approve the proposed change to the LDRs.
Any discussion?
Yeah, Sam, you leave and they give us more power. How about that?
Makes perfect sense to me. Story of my life.
Yeah.
Do I have a motion?
I move to
Mr.
approve.
Chairman, it is a public hearing. So
It is a
let's just
public
open
hearing.
it and
Public
close it.
hearing is open. Anyone wish to speak on this matter? Public hearing is closed.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for that point of order.
Move to approve staff's recommendation.
Second.
Dr. Day, and that's Mr. Bragnano. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. I tried to bolt out of here earlier, but item number 5 is Commissioners' Matters. I think this is my 6th, 7th, 8th year. I don't know how much brain damage I have, but I would like to make one brief statement, if you would allow me. I came in here a real estate developer. I still am. And so oftentimes I'm sitting on the other side of the table from staff in cities and counties all over Florida and in Ohio, too. And so I had a great deal of skepticism walking in here about what it would, about government. But I want to say, if anybody's actually watching this on TV, that you should be very proud of your staff here. They do an excellent job, and they brought me along, and through their professionalism and expertise, I have a great deal of faith as I leave this position that the county is in excellent, excellent hands, and it's been a pleasure to work with you all, so thank you very much. Last thing I would like to say is that, and I'm sure this wasn't a mistake, you probably wonder whether I actually read these packets with these clever little things that you send in these great articles every time. And in fact, I do, and I'm going to prove it to you right now, and I think this was like my final test to see if I read this stuff. And whoever's responsible for this, kudos. The last words in the last packet that was delivered to me today says, "There will always be another coyote to replace the one that you've removed." And with those words, this coyote is going to hit the road. And are there any attorney's matters, Mr.?
Before you do, Sam, I'd like to say you've done a remarkable job of chairing this commission.
Thank you, sir.
And you'll be hard to replace.
I echo that as well. Well done, Sam.
Thank you.
Here, here.
Mr. DeBrawl.
I have nothing, sir. Good luck
adjourned.
and Godspeed.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.